I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, oh my God, she's wearing me out in bed. That's actually a good problem to have. I've got an email here from a viewer who's having a great time with a girl that he met. I think he's been following me for about a year or two, I guess, since he had a divorce. And he shares a really great story of what's going on with this new woman he's been dating for the past few months. But before we get into it, I got a quote I'd like to share with you. And it says, "Life is meant to be enjoyed and appreciated. The purpose of life is to have fun and live in the moment. Nothing lasts forever. It's always best to embrace opportunities when they present themselves, whether it be meeting a spectacular new lover, making a new friend, or embracing a new business or career opportunity. When you get in the flow of life and live with gratitude, you open yourself up to new and exciting possibilities to manifest effortlessly. Follow your passion, curiosity, and intuition. Trust in yourself and what feels right, and it will never steer you wrong." Well, let's get into this guy's email. Like I said, I think he's been following me for about a year and a half or so. He had a divorce. He says a horrible divorce. So he says, "Hey, Corey, okay, here's my story in question. It's now been almost a year and a half since my horrible divorce. I've dated a few people, but nobody was all that great. Then I met Janet. She is awesome," he puts in big letters. "Nice, smart, pretty, the body of a Playboy bunny, active in sports, hardworking, entrepreneur, etc. We've known each other for about 3 months and been dating exclusively for a month." It's like textbook. So the first 2 months, he obviously got her to start to really fall for him. She probably brought up the topic of being exclusive, just like I talk about in my book. And so here it is, and after a full month of being exclusive, 3 months together. He says, "Here's my question. I know you will say go slow and enjoy. Well, she is wearing me out in a good way. She is hot and wet all the time." Well, you got to attribute that to you, my man. Obviously, you're doing the right things and you're courting her properly, and she feels really open to you, and she's obviously having a good time. Sounds like she's probably a very sexual person, too. He says, "When we get together for a day or two, we constantly make love." Oh, poor baby. "Neither one of us can walk after 2 days together." She's walking like a duck, and so are you. Awesome, man. He says she's only been with 3 other men. One was her husband of 25 years who was abusive and a porn addict. He'd rather watch porn than do it with her. I had a guy I knew years ago. He was like a friend of a friend. This is back when I was in real estate. I sold a house to him and his wife. And his wife was beautiful. And it's like he couldn't have sex with her unless they watched porn first. That's what it took to get him turned on. It's fucked up. He says, "Go figure. Anyway, I'm finding out more and more that we do have common interests, music, sports, humor, etc." But listen to what he says here. "But the sex is the most and best I've ever had." Fucking good for you, dude. This is your fucking birthright. And this is what happens when you don't settle. See, like he was saying, he dated a few girls over the past year and a half or so that he has divorced, but nobody that really knocked his socks off, and so he didn't settle and get into a mediocre relationship. He kept looking, he kept searching until he found someone that was spectacular, and it's worth the wait. It all comes down to being comfortable in your own skin. In other words, saying to yourself, you know what? I don't want to be like the majority of other people in this world who have settled for a life of mediocrity, because life is too short. In other words, if I can't have spectacular, I'm totally cool with being single until somebody really great comes along. Now, obviously, you're going to date and have fun and practice your skills, but this is what happens. When you prepare and you practice and you get good at these things, when the right girl comes along, you know it. It's easy. It's effortless. And because you did the work on yourself and you practiced, then when you meet a really great girl, you don't like totally come unglued and blow it after a few weeks and then spend the next 6 months or year licking your wounds, regretting what you lost or what you could have had. That's why I say all the time, repetition's the mother of skill. You got to practice this stuff because this is what you want to do. You want to get prepared for this kind of a woman. And this is what will eventually happen if you apply the stuff that I talk about. It's just like the experiences I wrote about in my book. It's well worth the wait. He says, we're both in our early 50s. We act like hormone-laden teenagers. That's fucking awesome, dude. He says, will this slow down? Well, at some point, it always slows down. Usually, I found after 6 to 9 months is when things start to taper off where you're not having sex 4 or 5 times a day. But it really depends on the quality of your relationship and how deep your connection is. Because at the end of the day, once the newness wears off, once you get used to having sex with somebody that knocks your socks off after a while, that's why it's so important to make sure that you only get into relationships with women that you're really crazy about and who feel the same way about you. Because sex is really, in the big scheme of things, is a small part of a relationship. And you want to have somebody that you really sincerely enjoy hanging out with. I mean, think about it. How often do you meet a new best friend or a new best beer drinking buddy? I mean, great friends don't come along every day in life. You meet a lot of people that are cool and they're fun to hang out with, but not everybody's going to be your best friend. He says, it is almost too much for me, but hey, I can take the challenge. He says, we live in different cities, almost 3 hours apart, but we get together at least once every week. We talk or text daily. Just make sure that she's doing most of the calling, texting, and pursuing and initiating it. And that way you'll ensure that she continues to chase you. Because if a woman's pursuing you and chasing you and trying to get a hold of you, she's not going to be dumping you. And so the guy should never initiate more than 20 to 30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing. That's the sweet spot. I coach thousands of guys all over the world. And anytime a guy runs into a problem or the attraction starts to drop off or he's unable to get her to fall in love, it's because he's pursuing too much most of the time. He says, what is your opinion of this and do you think it will slow down? Well, it's definitely going to slow down over time, but the key is that you got somebody that you really enjoy hanging out with. And at the end of the day, here's the thing to keep in mind, remember about relationships. When you meet somebody, we can as human beings, we can cover up who we really are and mask who we really are for about the first 90 days. So you're just now hitting the 90-day mark. And this is where, because it's like when you spent that much time together, like in this case, you guys are kind of far apart and you're spending 1 week, in other words, 1 or 2 days a week together just because you live 3 hours apart. But the key is that after about 90 days, that's kind of like when the masks come off. In other words, you get so comfortable and so familiar with each other that the real you comes out. And it's only after that 90-day period has passed that you can really start objectively looking at that person and seeing them for who they really are. He says, we are enjoying it and living in the moment, but I can see being married to this wonderful woman. Slow down, dude. The idea is that you want to date. My best advice in this category is to date for 2 or 3 years before you get married, because you may find yourself after 6 months that it just kind of fizzles out or you just kind of get bored with her. I mean, it happens. And so just enjoy it for what it is and don't focus on the future or worry about the future, because when a guy starts doing that, when he starts getting all wrapped up in his head about the future, it takes you out of the present moment. And at the end of the day, the only moment that exists is right now. You can't do anything about the future because it's not here yet. And as far as I know, nobody's invented a time machine, so you can't go back in time and undo anything. And so the only moment that exists is right now. And so if you're having a great time and you're fucking each other's brains out, keep doing that. Keep focusing on hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. And obviously you're doing lots of hooking up, and I'm happy for you, because I mean, it's like you're 50 years old, you're in your 50s, and this is the first time in your life that you've gotten to experience that after having a crappy marriage and going through a shitty divorce. And the late actor, what was his name, Cary Grant, he was like literally 4 or 5 years away from the end of his life when he got to this point where because what he said was, he's like, and I think he'd been married 5 or 6 times, he said, this is the first time in my life where I feel really comfortable in my own skin. And I think, like I said, he was like in the late 60s, early 70s at that point. And so, I mean, that's great that you're there now. And for guys that are younger than that, you have the opportunity to experience this a lot younger. If you apply all the wisdom and things that I teach, this is what your future will be like. If you practice and you prepare and you get yourself ready, this kind of a woman will come along that you have this kind of a connection with. He says, every now and then we go out to eat or see a movie, but both of us love being in bed touching each other. Well, it sounds like, her, I mean, she had a bad marriage of 25 years, and obviously you were married for quite a long period of time. So you're making up for lost time. It's a beautiful gift, and enjoy it while it lasts, because at the end of the day, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And so that, if I were you, focus and stop. Don't be worrying about the future or that this is the kind of girl you're going to marry, because it's still really too new. You're only 90 days in it, and you're just now starting to get to the place where you can really see her for who she is as a woman, and vice versa. She can see who you really are as a man. And so if you guys 2-3 years from now, after dating and having a great time, because if you're 3 hours apart, I mean, somebody eventually, I would imagine, is going to have to move, because you don't want to get married and live 3 hours apart from your wife or your husband if you're a woman watching this. So like I said, I've just found the best experience, people that want to get married, it's better if you wait 2 or 3 years, because if you're still having a kick-ass time 2 or 3 years from now, if both of you make the effort, if she takes care of herself, takes care of her body, stays in shape, stays good looking for you, and you do the same thing, because the whole purpose of all relationships is you go there to give. And when two people focus on that and they take care of themselves, it's just like the quote you've probably heard me share before by Jim Rohn. He says, I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. So after 2 or 3 years of dating, if you're still having a great time, I would say under most circumstances, you'll be having sex at least 2 to 3 times a week under normal circumstances if you have a really great, healthy relationship. And some people have it even more. Everybody's different. It's different strokes for different folks. And like I said, enjoy it while it lasts, because maybe after 6 months, maybe 2 years, you might decide that you want to move on. And you know what it's like to be in a bad marriage, and obviously she knows what it's like to be in a bad marriage, and you guys can really enjoy appreciating, because that's one of the gifts about going through difficult times in life, or hardships, or heartache, or difficult problems, because it helps you become a better person. It helps you become more patient, more understanding, more loving, more forgiving, and it really allows you to appreciate things in life when they're spectacular. And so I think it's great what you're experiencing, and like I said, this is exactly what I wrote about in my book. And so if you apply what I teach, this is exactly what will be in your future if you diligently apply what I teach. So if you've got a challenge or a situation that you'd personally like to get my help with, the quickest way to get my help, because right now the emails that I'm answering are from about 3 weeks ago, because I just get inundated with emails, and I'm just one guy and there's only so much of me. So if you're going to send an email, you're going to be waiting about 3 weeks for me to get back to you. But if you want to talk to me quicker, the best way to get my help, my undivided attention, is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab, and just follow the instructions for booking a paid phone session with yours truly. And I will talk to you soon.